as Winsor Newton's transparent yellow ochre. And so these are colors that I find that are just wonderful to work with because they give me some brilliant, intense color, especially if I want to colorize this. I don't want to make this, well, I'm going to come around for a second here. See, I kind of want to make this look like an old-timey painting, okay? So John is a great client, and he's given me the latitude to just be very expressive in the background. All he cares about is that he looks happy. This is all he cares about. It's his pose, okay? And so the rest is just going to be background. Just kind of like if you were in a symphony, everything has to back up the melody. So this is the melody. Everything back here is going to buttress and complement the main event, and that's him. And that's the hardest thing to get when you first start painting. So what I've done, I don't know if you can see down in here. Yeah, yes, you can. Let me tell you my colors. This white is titanium white. This is lemon yellow. I'm not going to be using much of that. I just put these colors on here, but I'm not going to be using all of them. Cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, cadmium yellow medium, cadmium orange, cadmium red light. These are all Utrecht oil paints, which you know I love. Been using them for years. Cadmium red medium, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue. Here I just added some white to that ultramarine blue. And then here's a Winsor Newton color. It's kind of a sap green. And I like the sap green because it's very transparent. And that's why I'm going to be using it here. And then I have raw umber. And away we go. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit. I'm going to paint a little bit on the background now. And I've mixed, as you can see down here. Well, actually, I want to move the camera a little bit lower, just so you could see what I've got here. Right here, what I've done is I've added a little bit of white to this yellow oxide, or actually ochre oxide, and mixed it with the sap green. Okay, and that's going to go really well over this underpainting. This is your classic underpainting, and so that way a lot of this raw umber is going to show through all the other colors, because I'm going to intentionally want it to kind of show through. So I'm not going to cover all this as if it was never there. I want it to kind of show through. Okay, so let's go back up. I got a couple setups here where I'm actually looking at my iPad, as well as looking at at my painting. Okay, and I also have the photograph on my computer, so I can actually see what I'm painting. So check this out. I also like using the side of the brush. Now, one thing that takes a little bit of understanding is not applying the paint too thick right now. I like a lot of paint, but the idea is just to add a little bit at first, and then I'm going to add some other colors as well. Now, I like the idea of complements, red and green. So this is kind of an olive green, and I'm going to add a little bit of this red oxide. I've added a little bit of white to it, and now I'm going to add a little bit of that Blick Studio Quick Glaze on there. Now, you don't have to be so careful. Just have fun with it and just kind of lay it in. In fact, being too timid is actually a negative. You want to kind of get some paint on there. But I don't mean paint on there in terms of thickness. I mean just wanting to get the paint to rest on that surface. And I'm not worrying too much about, does this look like I've painted it outdoors like some of my plein air paintings. What I want here is just to get a feel. the main idea is I want that feeling like it's back 70 years ago. And it has that kind of burnt photographic quality. Now, what's fun about this project is that because it's in black and white, the originals are black and white, I can really have fun. I can really have fun with the colors because it's all interpretive. Okay. So right now I'm doing a little bit of what's called broken color. And what that means is everything is not perfectly blended. I'm just kind of dappling areas here and there. And you have to continually remind yourself it's going to come out okay. Half of all painting is mental. It really is. You have to be telling your brain, this is great. This is really I'm having so much fun. You have to enjoy the process. You know, painting just involves a lot of mental energy. So you cannot have any doubts. You literally have to clear your mind. In fact, if you're having a bad day, you've got to you go out on a walk, clear your mind, because it just requires a lot of energy. A lot of energy. Okay. Okay, so here we go. And then after a while, I'll add some other colors in there. But right now, I'm just working with a very sap green. I pre-mixed it. I want to mix all that in front of you because all that takes time, and we only have an hour. Okay. So I'm going to go down to here. And I know there's a lot in the photograph, there's a lot of twigs and stuff, but I'm not worried about that. In fact, I'll probably let some of this dry, add another glaze of other colors so that they all kind of blend together. And again, can you see how I'm using the side of my brush? And I'm keeping at this point of the creation of this painting, I'm keeping the paint fairly thin. I love really thick paint, but for right now, I'm keeping it thin because what's going to happen next is I'm going to work on his jeans. Now I'm going to add a little bit of a cooler green here. Watch what's going to happen. And I'm going to add the cool. Here's a little bit of color theory. I'm going to add some of this cool toward, can you see that? A little bit of this cool towards the back of the lawn, because that cool is going to recede a bit and it really plays off some of the warm greens. And I'm going to keep my warmest greens towards the front. Okay, it's a wonderful trick because the cools, what that means is there's some blue in the green, and the greens that I'm going to have here, or the reddish greens, are going to have more warmth in it. And so just by contrast, it's going to create the illusion that it's coming forward. Okay. And this sort of painting, you know, I really find fun because it's already kind of grayed back. It's already falling back. You see how now the eye goes right to him. Okay, there. Go with the values. The values, as they say, and I think I repeated this last time, but I'll repeat it again. You know, they say color gets the glory, but the values do all the work, and that's really true. They do all the grunt work. If you don't get the values right, it's your painting is going to seem off. And what I do, and this is a trick that you may use. Most of you have cell phones, right? You're either watching this on your device, on your phone, or maybe on your desktop. But if you're ever working on a painting, and something is wrong with it, take a snapshot of it, take a pic of it, and then in the edit phase of your app, on your pic app, desaturate it. Desaturate so it goes to gray. So you just see white grays and black. And that will show you what your painting looks like in grays. And 9 times out of 10, you'll see where your eye goes immediately. And then you're going to have to ask yourself, is that where I want the eye to go? Because right now, my lightest light is right here. So your eye's going to go there. So everything that I'm going to paint, I'm always doing compare and contrast. And I'm always thinking about the main event, which is him. Keep the main thing, okay? Because the problem with a lot of young painters, you fall in love with the tree. Then you start modeling the tree, but the client doesn't want the tree, or it's just not important. The face is important. I want all my energy to go there. Okay, so enough of my preaching, but I really believe in that, because I think I've made all the mistakes in painting, and I still love it. I still love it because you have to have areas of success. If you don't have areas of success, then you get frustrated and quit. Like when I quit playing golf for a while, I got so frustrated, I didn't play for several years. Then my buddy Scott just literally grabbed me and says, I've already made the reservations, and we're gonna go out and hit some balls. And I was, I was happy he did that. Say a prayer for him, because he's right now struggling with a little bit of an ailment. And anyway, he got me out there, and now I'm having fun again. And I recaptured the fun I had when I first started playing golf. So same thing with painting. You're going to have some successes, and I had some successes out there on the links, so to speak. So I'm here to help you. So let's do the shade part. Okay, in the photograph, it goes really dark. Let's not make it so dark. So what I'm going to do is, now I'm going to add. I'm going to mix up here so you can see. Oh yeah, you can see what I'm doing. There you go. Is the original in black and white or sepia? The original is in black and white. The original is in black and white. So I told the time traveler that I was going to make it in sepia. But it doesn't, it doesn't really matter if it was black and white or sepia. The values is what's important here. Okay, it's the values. Okay, check this out. This is fun. So see the value. See the value that I have for this green here. The big thing. Hi, Barbara. The big thing is separating your lights from your darks. A lot of paintings break down because people see too much in the darks and see too much in the lights. But if you separate them, man, you make it easier for people to read the painting. Okay, you make it so much easier. Okay, so just for a little funsies, there's whatever sky color I put up there, I usually will add some of the sky color, in the shadow, because it's going to be reflecting some of that. So I'm just going to add just a little bit of that blue in here, just dabbing it. Okay, and I'm keeping that fairly thin. Okay, keep that fairly thin. Okay, now let's work on the pants. I'm going to use a different brush. Okay, now with the pants here, I'm going to work a little bit wet into wet. I just kind of did this prior to coming on live, and I didn't want to just kind of bore you guys with just all the stuff I was, just laying and things like that, because I wanted to show you how I'm going to colorize it. So the key here now is getting the right values. Okay, getting the right values. Okay, so I had some music on fairly low and it's starting to bug me. So sorry about that. So let's. So I asked the time traveler, what sort of jeans were you wearing? And he goes, I don't know, just your typical old jeans. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to add a little bit of that red transparent oxide, and I'm going to scumble on there. The trick here, I'm adding a little bit of that Blick Studio Quick Glaze. Okay, can you see it there? There you go. Okay. And so now I'm going to play with some of these colors here. There we go. Oh yeah. Now here I'm adding a little bit of that gel to the mixture. Now here's the key. You want some nice little thin application, okay? I'm gonna get thicker at some point, but I'm gonna start kind of thin. And what's really great about this, I'm gonna go a little faster than normal. I suggest when you do this, take your time, okay? And you want to just kind of work a little of that paint into the underpainting. The underpainting is still wet, so they're blending. Okay, I think I put burnt umber there. That burnt umber is mixing a little bit with this combination of ultramarine blue and that transparent red oxide. Okay. Oh, this is fun. Oh, this is so much fun. This is, a really fun technique. And what I like about it, another question, Barbara, do you use turpentine at all, right? See, turpentine is a solvent. So no, don't use turpentine. At this point, I only use the actually I don't use turpentine, I use turpenoid, but you only use that to clean your brushes. So right now, all I'm using is just the oil paint and the glaze, the Dick Blick Studio Quick Glaze. That's all I'm using. Okay. Okay. Keep the questions coming. Keep the questions coming. And I'm not totally, what's great about this, about John, he goes, hey, just, you got my face. That's all I cared about. And so the big deal here is just getting the real feel of the pants. I'm going to add a little bit of that titanium white. Okay. See how it gets a little bit lighter there? Okay. And the type of brush you use also affects how it'll look. Here, I'm going to use another type of brush here. Okay. You see that? Let's use this, and you can see how different it's going to look once I use this brush. These are cool brushes. And see, I use a very delicate touch here. A very delicate touch. In football terms, it's almost like floating it over the middle linebacker, a floater. So this requires a very delicate touch. And I'm slightly scumbling. There's just a little bit of that gel on there, not that much. Okay, see that? Okay. And again, I'm looking at the values. You can't see the original photograph. Actually, let me show you the original photograph. Can you see? Can you guys see that? Small little black and white. I took a picture of it and I blew it up on my iPad. Okay. Please repeat. This is Sue. Please repeat what you said that you used to clean your brushes. Oh, I clean my brushes with turpenoid, odorless turpenoid, because if it was turpentine, especially in this enclosed room, I would probably pass out. That stuff is really strong. I remember when I went to Art Center College of Design, the first time I went to art class, I almost passed out because the doors were shut. Everybody was using gum turpentine. That stuff is nasty. You know, if there's anything that, if there's anything that I think will kill you faster, it's that gum turpentine. Okay, here we go. Okay, a little bit of his pants. Oh yeah, this is going to come out good. And it's okay if you lose a little bit of that edge. You know, I mean, I like edges, but sometimes losing an edge makes it more interesting. What you're doing is you're engaging the viewer. He has to now kind of decide what's happening there. So now there's involvement. You have involvement in a relationship with your audience. Whereas if it's too hyper realistic, usually the engagement is, wow, how did they do that? So it's a different type of engagement here. Okay, and so since this is wet into wet, I'm going to put this little brush aside. I'm going to also add now some more of those darks of the shadow here, and I'm going to use the browns. Okay, and you guys can't quite see this, the original, but that's okay. So see, I go side to side. I go side to side. Okay, and frankly, right now there's no mistakes. That's the wonder of these paints. You know, you can always wipe it off. If I make a mistake, I can just wipe it off. That's the beauty of oils. You know. And there's all these different folds, and I like folds, so we're going to put those in there. I don't have to worry too much about those folds right now. What I'm looking for are the big shapes, the big masses. Okay, and you'll see what I'll do here in a little second. Okay, now hold on. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be right back. I'm going to turn my air conditioning on a little bit higher. Be back in 1 second. 1 second. Okay. Wow, I was sweating under here. I'm going, why am I sweating? Just go and turn on your air conditioning. But that's what happens. I don't know about you guys, but I get so into what I'm doing. And it's like part of my brain goes, hey, it's hot. It's hot. And another part of my brain goes, hey, keep painting, keep painting. This is fun. This is fun. You know, and I have to kind of remind myself. My wife says, keep drinking water. You need to drink water. I got to drink water. So there's all these things that are happening while I'm painting because it is so much fun. Okay. There you go. So I'm now just going to add a little bit more of this blue, a little bit darker blue, and I'll add a little bit, get that red from a little bit of this transparent oxide. It's a gray, and I'm just going very slowly. You didn't see that. That's some people don't like using their finger, but you know, I've been doing it for years at this point. So, but I would recommend wearing gloves, you know. I mean, I'm of that generation. We didn't have seat belts, and so we had to get used to seat belts. Now, you know, now it's like second nature. So at some point, I mean, once in a while, I mean, I usually wear gloves, but then I keep forgetting and I keep going back to this old habit. Okay. So yeah, it looks pretty cool. So now, and then he had these kind of funny little turn up cuffs here. So I asked him, what were those like? And he goes, I don't know. That's just kind of was the style. So I'm going to go, you know, it's warm there. I'm going to make it, I mean, it's cool. And I'll just make it just a little bit on the on the warm side. I'm just playing with color, see what that looks like. Yeah, that might be fun. And I'm using, again, a little bit of that glaze. A little bit of that glaze. And by applying the paint somewhat thin, that background's going to show. And then I asked him, what are those kind of cowboy boots? And he didn't remember what kind of boots. So before we get to there, I'm going to now work on this rock. What's great about the rock, there's a tendency to want to make that too bright. You know, I want to make his shirt kind of the brightest. Okay, so I'm going to be doing some glazes up there. But for right now, let's do some of this rock. So let's do that. Let me get rid of this paper towel. Okay, and just for you guys, I just got a brand new Silicoil. I love these things. You can get these at Dick Blick stores. These are wonderful. Okay. What I like about them is they have a little coil on top. So when you clean your brushes, what I always do, and I think it's a good idea with oils, first wipe out your brush, paper towel, get as much excess paint off as you can. Then you use the turpenoid to clean off more, and then that's it. So I don't use the turpenoid to paint, just to clean my brushes. Okay, so I'm just going to use now this synthetic flat just to start laying in some paint. And I like to work with tertiaries. What's the tertiary? The green. It's the violets. So, but I want that to be kind of a very, very gray violet. And so what I'll do is I'll mix a little bit of my other color that I was using of that green. Okay. And this is the part that's always kind of fun. And I'll add a little bit of white. A little bit of white. Oh, here's some of my white. This is my dirty white. I always have a little white that's apart from my main lump that I can get dirty, and I feel that's fine. Okay. And I'll kind of put that in there. I'm going to add a little of some broken color, a little alizarin crimson. I always like working with warms and cools. Okay. And I know in the photograph that's, Barbara says, you keep dipping in the little cup to the right. What is in it? Barbara, it's the glaze. It's this stuff right here. Okay. That's what I'm using. That's what it looks like. So that's the glaze I'm dipping into. Let's see. Bobby, Robert Hollis, the master. Does your underpainting have any visual texture presence so that you can employ a variety of abstractions? Oh, at this point, no, I'm not that sophisticated. So I just kind of, I just kind of let it fly so I can just have fun with it. Okay. And so I know there's people watching this of every different type of degree of skill set. So I'm kind of tailoring this to people who are beginners as well as intermediate. And I would imagine if you're advanced, you're probably not watching this, but you might be. Or you might probably wondering, okay, what is Ordaz? How does he do that? Well, that's how I kind of break color. I just kind of break it in there. And the trick is to have all those colors in the same color chord. If you're taking a class from me, like my friend Barbara, I'm always talking about color chords, having colors that essentially feel that, they're all in the same value, but they're all visually mixing together. Monet was a master of that. Okay. He was the master of color chords. Okay. Now, I was asking John about, oops, I called him John. He's going to get mad at me. His name's the time traveler. So I was asking Time Traveler about these rocks, and I said, so what kind of rocks were them? He goes, how do I know? I was 8 years old. So I don't know, they're probably some type of granite. There's a lot of granite up here. In fact, I'm in Auburn, California, and there's a famous mine, adding a little bit of that yellow in there to mix in with some of the other colors. There's a famous mine, the Griffith mine. A lot of the granite that was extracted from that mine was used to build our state capital in Sacramento. See, you get painting and a little bit of history. Okay. Ooh, I kind of like that. And there's always these little happy mistakes. I'll grant you, half the time painting, it's always a sense of kind of discovery. And that's what really keeps me excited about the art, is always finding something new to play with. Get some colors on there. I'm gonna mix a little bit of blue here. I'm gonna add some white to it because I want a very light blue to match that value. There we go. This takes a little bit of skill, friends, but it's very rewarding when you can learn how to mix a lot of different colors in the same value. And once you can do that, it really adds a lot to your game. And what I also like, if things start becoming a little bit too perfect, I'll then start dipping into my palette knife. And like right now, I'm just adding some different colors in there. Some cools. And what's important here is the value. Okay, it's a value. And this is the part that's playful. And this is something that just each of you will add your own personality to it. Okay. Now I'm going to jump over here real quick because that is a that's a river, a little creek. And I right now just cleaning out my brush. I'm gonna mix a violet here. Violets are always cool, and I like using violets to cool down some of these yellows. See what happens when I add that violet to that yellow ochre? It just grays it down. Why is it grayed down? Because violet is the complement of yellow, and I can still keep the richness of that yellow with the violet. And it is so much more exciting than just adding black to it. If you add black to that yellow ochre, yeah, the value will get darker, but it's going to lose its vibrancy. It's just going to go dead, in my opinion. Okay. Everything I say here is the opinion of Frank Ordaz, and not the opinion of Blick. It's just mine and mine alone. But years and years of painting, folks. Okay, let's go here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to match that color. I'm back. I just had to, again, the photograph is on my desktop. So I'm dipping into my glaze. So I'm keeping it fairly thin. It's my glaze. I'm going to add a little bit of my sap green. Why? Because that'll tie into the greens I have there, a little bit of the greens I have here, a little greens I have there. If I just made that blue out of the tube, then it would have that really icy feeling, and I don't want that feeling. And actually, I should be using a bigger brush, but this is what happens when you're an emotional painter like me. Just whatever you got, you just go with it. So that's one of my bad habits. So don't do that. I would go to a little bit bigger brush. But here, well on the way here. Okay. It's got to still be dark. A little too thick. Wiped off some of that excess paint from my brush. How are we doing on time here? Wow. It's 2:39. I can't believe it. It's like time flies when you're having fun. See, people always ask me, Frank, how long did it take you? I lose track of time. That's the beauty of art. If you want to extend your life, paint, because you definitely lose track of time. It's the most wonderful thing. You ask anybody who truly loves what they're doing, I'll tell you, it's mesmerizing. I'm still in love with painting. And probably because I'm like a child. I have to admit, I'm like a child, always want to be learning something new. I always want to be trying something new. I'm looking for that interesting adventure that I'm going to experience, when I paint. And I'm reading other people's blogs or hearing how they do it, and so sometimes that adds to my game. And you can learn from everybody, which I do, young and old. Okay, I'm gonna leave. Let's put a little bit of that there. Whoa, I got way too bright. I want that to go back. There we go. And I'm going to add some of that transparent red oxide and keep it a little bit thin. Do you use a value checker? No, I don't. And that's a good idea. I know my friend Jim Gurney uses that, and that's a good idea. And if you have a hard time gauging your values, I recommend that. That's a good tool. Okay, that is a good tool. But like I was saying earlier, if you were here earlier, I don't know when you tuned in. This is Nancy. I usually take a photograph on my iPhone of the painting, and then I desaturate it so I can see the values. And if I'm painting outdoors, I'll take a pic, desaturate it, and see how my values match up the values from life. And that's what I do. So it's essentially the same thing, but I'm using technology. That's really only the main difference. Okay, so in this short time, let's do a glaze on the hat. Yeah, let's do a glaze on the hat. Okay, let's start working on the face, because that's what we want. That's the part that's most important. Okay, that's the part that's most important. Compare and contrast. Here's a little trick, guys. This is a little trick. A lot of artists use these, and that's the glow. Guys have heard it. I call it the penumbra. See how that's white? Well, you add just a little bit of light on the outside of that. Okay. So it's just for you guys. This is really my big trick. When people say, Frank, your painting glows. Well, on the edge of this white, I just added a warmth of the yellow. And then now the trick is to slowly have that color blend into the background. And this just requires just a little bit of patience. Okay. Can you kind of see that, how that works right there? I'm doing this pretty quick, but you got to do that slow. I'll do it on this side again. Check this out. It's a very cool effect. And so what I'm using is cadmium yellow, adding a little, because that's a really punchy color. And check this out. I'll put this around the edge. And you can only do that where the form is in the light. Okay, you can't put that. It's not going to work if you do it here, right? It's just going to look like an outline. But this is where the light emanates off of a light, bounces off of a light surface, and it really can create that very, like an old-timey glow. You see that in old movies where there's this glow that comes off of very lit surfaces. It's almost blinding. Can you see that? Okay. Again, I'm doing this quickly for you guys, but normally I would just take my time, maybe take 10 minutes just to do this so that it feels like it's just branching out. Do you see that glow? You see that? I know you're all saying yes. If you're in my class, I tell everybody, I want to hear yes. And they all say yes. Okay. That way I know that they're paying attention, because it gets lonely up here painting if nobody's talking, you know. And then somebody will say, well, we just don't want to interrupt you. And I go, well, interrupt me. I want to hear some feedback, you know. It's like, can I hear an amen? Amen. Okay. So that's that. Okay. That's another little trick. Here we go. So now let's do a glaze. You need a sable brush for this. Let me go grab a sable. I should have it. Hold on. So to do the glaze on this hat, you need a sable brush. And here I'm using the Blick. That's a number 8. Okay. So I'm going to dip this in quick glaze. Okay. Just right now. I'm going to kind of I'm just going to add a thin film of that glaze. Okay. Thin film. And now I'm going to add a little bit of this transparent oxide. See that? Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? Changed it just like that. Probably it's a little bit too yellow. And so we might add just a little bit of that transparent red oxide. Remember, the key is the transparent red oxide. You could still do it with other colors, but it's so much easier if you use some of these transparent colors. Okay. See that? Isn't that cool? Okay, let's do a little bit on the underside. There. Okay. And here's a little trick. This will, again, a little bit of color theory. Anytime you have a very light surface here, like this light rock, and you have the glaze like a liquid. Yeah, it seems to be like liquid. I think it's like a competitor, but I like it. You're gonna get some of that green going into the underside of that hat. Okay. So I'll do that. Any more questions? Because we're running out of time here. And normally I use a larger palette here, but we did this all for you guys here. So a little bit of that green on the other side. Why the green? Because I'm going to get some of that reflected light coming from the grass. It ties into the grass. Okay. Okay. And if I paint what's around it, let me just paint what's around it real quick so you can kind of see what's happening here. There's going to be green of the shadow. Very thin. Okay. This way you guys can see what's happening here. Okay. I'm going to add a little bit of the red oxide to kind of push that back. Otherwise it just stands out. I don't want it to stand out. Okay. Now, let's put a little glaze on that little angelic face. Okay. And I can use just a little bit that red oxide. You guys see that? This is the glaze, very thin application here. I'm gonna let it, the master of this was Maxfield Parrish. I'm actually also later going to kind of go into the shadow, lighten up some of these little shadow areas. See that? And for the cheeks, I don't have the color here, but I would use that, it's called permanent rose. If I added some permanent rose across those cheeks, it's just gonna, I mean, it's gonna look great, but I'm gonna have to wait till that dries. Okay, let's maybe just add just a little bit more on the cheeks, just a little, or on the face. Oh, the old masters work this way. Oops. And I like having a little bit of that red right there on the edge. Okay. And some of that will be in the hands. Okay. You guys see that? I'm going to wait for that to dry. Otherwise, it's just going to look neon. So the glazing really takes a little bit of time because you just have to be patient. And while this is drying, I'm going to go to, work on another painting. How are we doing on time? Okay, we got about 9 more minutes. So just let me know. So I'm just going to now, let's give them kind of I'm going to go a little bit light on the shirt, and I see that. So I'm going very opaque. Now this is another technique. Why? Because that's going to give it a lot of character and make it come forward. And even within that, I'll still throw in some cools of violets to gray down some of that yellow. See? Oh, this is the fun part. Folks, it's really, I don't see why, well, I could see why people who've been in the military, they end their careers like Churchill, end up painting. Because you're really connecting with the spirit, Think about it. You're capturing a moment, you're helping somebody really connect with their past, connect at a much gentler time when we could escape into the woods. Now everything is, concrete and asphalt, but not when John was alive. I mean, well, he's still alive. I mean, not when John was young. Okay. And what's great is, there's going to be little highlights. In fact, I'll just add, just for you guys, I'll put a little bit of that pink of the cheek. It should be transparent, but that's what really, really makes it are the pinks. The pinks. And he was a really cheeky. I like when the British talk about cheeky lads. I mean, he's really cheeky. See that? Okay, that's going good. 9 minutes. Okay. So I'll just keep. I'm gonna do a little bit of that background, just so you can see what's happening with the face. Ta-ta. I've been promising this painting to the time traveler for a while, but I've been so busy with other projects that I haven't touched it in a couple months. So I told them, okay, I got the perfect opportunity to paint you. We'll do this for Blick Live. So again, you can go to my website, go to Blick's to buy your paints. You can buy some of these paints off of my site, you know, and I have links to a lot of the paints that I use, a lot of the brushes that I use. Go to ordazart.com under supplies and resources, and you'll see links to a lot of the paint and the surfaces I use. And you're on your way. Go ahead and email me, ask me questions. I'll be more than happy, if you've been watching this, to answer you. Okay. And even now, a little bit of that blue. You can really push colors with glazes. A little bit of glaze here. Now I'm dipping into the glaze. Okay. Take a little blue. And if I wanted to, I can put a little bit of a violet in there. As long as it's in the right value, it'll work. See? It'll work. Even down here, I could put some of that violet even down in here. Oop, too light. Can you see? It stood out right away. What does that tell you? That means it's not the right value. It has to be the right value. There we go. See? Value is everything. You don't want it to stand out. Amy Ellen, why do you call him the time traveler? No, he calls himself the time traveler. So I'm just respecting his wishes. Those are his pronouns, time traveler. So that answers that. That's his shtick. He's dressed up. He has dressed up like a person out of 1890, consciously out of the 1890s. That's his thing. And the edges, we haven't talked about edges, but edges, maybe another opportunity to talk about edges. But the edges is what's really important, getting those just to feel just 100% right. Okay. And you really can't rush it. I know I'm rushing here for time to try to get as much on here for you guys. But you could see that once you nail in some of these values, you know, it just starts going really quickly. Okay. Okay. Let's just keep going. And I think we're winding down here, but I'm going to keep painting. I'm going to keep painting. Why? Because I'm into it now. You know, it's fun. I just enjoy this. And I think if you enjoy something, it shows in your art. I'm a firm believer of that. And so that's why I like painting in oils. That's why I like the Utrecht paints. And I'm not, it might sound like I'm shamelessly plugging them, but I've been using Utrecht for a long time. So it's all good. And it's something that I like a buttery oil paint. It's kind of, and they're buttery, you know, and made in America. It's another reason why I buy Utrecht. Made in America, even though it has a name from the Netherlands, Utrecht. In fact, you know that Utrecht was one of the few cities in the Netherlands that actually painted more like the Italians. It's a really interesting phenomenon that happened in Utrecht. They didn't paint like Rembrandt. They painted like Italians. One of their famous subject matter was Saint Sebastian. patron saint of getting shot with arrows. Should be the patron saint of artists being shot with arrows, criticisms. Everybody's a critic. Everybody's a critic. I was just standing back, see what it looks like. I'm a happy camper. I think it's looking okay. And then you could start adding more paint down in here and just going by your values. I know there's some rocks. There will be some rocks in here. Rocks there. When I was a matte painter at Lucasfilm, this is kind of how we painted. Everything's fairly loose, and then it gets very tight. From loose to tight. And it seems counterintuitive. You would think we'd start really tight, totally different. We worked totally differently. Everything was very, very, very loose. Now the shadow here is dark. I'm actually going to lighten that up. It's very dark in the photograph, but I'm going to lighten it up. Figure it was a very old photograph. And then of course there's pockets of darks in the grass right now. While it's still kind of wet, I'll poke in, some darks. And I like using a bristle because a bristle gives me a very undistinguishable edge. Okay. Yeah, I'm doing this kind of quick for you guys, but you guys get the idea. Okay. Now it should be in about an hour. So I don't know how much longer they're going to have me on. I'm going to now add a little bit more. Tip more into my liquid there. Okay, folks. I'm going to leave you now, but hopefully you've learned a little something from this short 1 hour demo. Be very aware of your edges. Start, the main theory is thick over thin. So start off a little bit thin, then add more paint. Once you've really nailed that value, then jump in there with a lot more paint. That's what I do. There's always people who are really, 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 really into thick paint right away, and that's cool. But that's not my technique. So if that's not my technique, why should I teach it? So I teach what has served me well. So I bid you adieu. Hope you learned something. Again, you can go to my website, ordazart.com. I have a resource page. You can click to buy some of the paints that I use. And you can look at my art and send me an email, say hi, so I know you're out there, and I hope you enjoyed this. Okay, so long.